Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome into a new episode of Capitol View, a webcast brought to you by the Daily Journal and djournal.com, coming to you every Monday afternoon, talking state government with our Capitol Bureau Chief, Bobby Harrison, down there in Jackson. I'm your host, Brad Locke. Thanks for joining us for the next 10 to 15 minutes. We'll talk about a couple of big topics from coming out of Jackson. One of them, both of them, Bobby, very familiar topics that we've covered. We're going to talk about the state revenue collections and the possibility of a state lottery. We have some new info, I guess, on those. Bobby, how you doing?
All right, Brad, how you doing? That lottery just won't go away.
No, it won't, Bobby. Let's start with the revenue collections, though. It's obviously okay. It was a long stretch of bad months for state revenue, and just the collections staying down, very sluggish. The last couple of months, Bobby, they've been good, and in April, the income tax collections, easy for me to say, income tax collections up 36% above what was collected in April of last year. Of course, April, I guess the deadline is normally the 15th. I think they pushed it back to the 17th or 18th because of a weekend, but that's, the deadline for people to file their personal income taxes. And so to get those numbers in, Bobby, is there an easy explanation for why it's that much higher?
Well, I mean, it could be that the state economy is finally doing better, but another what we probably won't know, Brad, let me rephrase. We'll probably know more after the May collections are in. Sure. Because some people say what happened was in April, new Revenue Commissioner Herb Frierson, former member of the State House from Poplarville, former Appropriations Committee chair, by the way, of the State House, he put a lot of emphasis on speedy counting of the collections. I mean, these, it has to be done manually, and people are literally sitting at the office at the Department of Revenue out in Clinton, opening envelopes. And normally those collections are spread out over 2 months, over April and May. But there's some indication that because of the hard work done by the Department of Revenue employees, that more of those collections than normal were collected in April. And if that's the case, May could be a bad month. I don't want to be a sort of a Debbie Downer, but if that's the case and May collections are below what they were anticipated to be, that could put the state sort of in a not as quite a good a position financially, but we'll just have to see what happens in May. That's what happened in March. It was a good month in March because of the corporate income tax collections, and as it turned out, all the money was all collected in March when there was some speculation to be collected in April. But while the corporate collections were way up in March, in April they actually were 27 million below the projection, so it kind of evened out. So we'll see if that happens with revenue collections over the next in May.
So it looks like basically, Bobby, May and I guess a couple months beyond that for sure, but definitely May should give us an idea if this is just kind of a positive blip or maybe a trend in the right direction.
Right. And then of course, there's only one more month in the budget year. Sure. The fiscal year goes July through June. So we only have June after that. You remember last year in June they were having to call a special session to allow the governor to take more money out of the rainy day fund because collections were so far down. But it doesn't, as it looks right now, it doesn't appear that the governor's going to make any more adjustments to the budget. He's already made 4 this year because of revenue collection before March and April was so far down. So he's had to make 4 revenue projections adjustments for this year. And when I say adjustments, I mean cuts. And so, that was the word the governor used. I think it was adjustments, but it was in reality cuts. And so he's made 4 of those, and more than likely he's not going to have to make any more.
As you mentioned, Bobby, the fiscal year ends June 30th, and for the year, revenue collections are at $4.36 billion. This time last year, I think it was 4.3, so it's about a 1.3% increase, which, again, that's a positive thing. But we've also got some other factors, Bobby. When you factor in some other funds, it's even more because, of course, a lot of these collections now, they sweep to the general fund as opposed to going toward specific endeavors, right?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to compare year over year because this year, Brad, is the first year where we're getting money swept into the general fund, these special fees and assessments that were previously assessed to to fund specific items. So they were not part of the general fund revenue that could be, that where the legislature had more discretion on how to spend it. And so this year that money's being swept into the general fund for the first time. So you really don't have, you don't have a accurate comparison. You got the numbers in front of you, Brad, but I think, I think it's around $91 million.
91.8.
That's been swept into the general fund that was not available last year. So when you talk about year over year, it's really it's in a sense it's comparing apples and oranges, but so that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, when you factor those funds in, then you've got revenue that's about $175 million, or 4% above the estimate, including that's including all those sweeping all those assessments into the big pot there. So we'll just have to see if this can continue, Bobby, and you hope so, but we'll cover that again real soon, I'm sure. I want to talk a little bit more about the state lottery. That's kind of the hot topic during this. The post-session period, pre-special session period, kind of in a weird place where we're waiting for the legislature to reconvene June 5th to address mainly, of course, some agencies that need budgets passed, like the Mississippi Department of Transportation, for instance. But looks like we've got some momentum going for maybe a state lottery to be included on the agenda. And, of course, they've got the committee that Speaker Philip Gunn has formed to study the possibility of a lottery and how it might impact the state economically. And we've talked before about how Governor Bryant feels like, well, this is kind of an anti-lottery committee because Philip Gunn says that, they're looking to gather information that will disprove the notion that it could be a boon for the state economy. But the members of the committee, the members themselves, Bobby, they seem pretty adamant that they're just looking to gather info and facts, and they're not trying to take a side on this, are they?
Right. I talked to 3 members of the committee last week, Brad. I talked to 2 from Northeast Mississippi, Nick Bain, Democrat Corinth, and Matt Cottlestone, a Republican from Pontotoc. And they both are against the lottery, and they don't, they don't make any bones about that. But they also both commit that they're going to just gather the facts and include those facts in the report. And just let the facts, speak for themselves. Now, Nick Bain particularly, made it clear that he wasn't going to vote for the lottery under any circumstance. He said it, was didn't coincide with his Baptist philosophy, Southern Baptist philosophy, but he said that he would gather the facts and do that objectively. And so, other members of the committee are for the lottery. If you look at it, it's probably split about 50-50 as far as who's for it and who's against it. On the, Nick, I forget now, is it a nine-person committee or
right?
Or it can't be quite 50-50, but close to 50-50.
Yeah, 9 people.
Yeah, unless somebody split 4.5. But at any rate, I think that this committee is going to just do a lot of work. They talk about looking at states, lottery states that also like Mississippi would be a casino state. They talk about going to trying to get some real numbers about how many people are actually leaving the state, going to Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana to buy lottery tickets. So it'll be regardless of where this comes out, it'll be it could be some interesting numbers.
Yeah.
That we need to have here in Mississippi, and the peer committee is doing the work. And the peer committee is a sort of legislative watchdog committee, and peer has a staff that is has a good reputation through the years of doing objective work. So they're going to be gathering a lot of those numbers. I think maybe there's some state economists and some other people on the IHL, the higher education level, are also doing some work on this. So it'll be interesting to get those facts. And as far as Brad, I know the governor talked about putting it in a special session, but at this point, unless some dynamics change, I'd just be surprised if it makes it. I mean, I think whatever happens is going to be is going to occur in the 2018 session. But who knows? This thing, you keep on thinking it's dead and gone, but it keeps on coming back. So we'll just have to see.
Well, as Matt Cuddleson said, you don't want to rush things and start printing out cards, and it is a big issue
Yeah,
and something that would probably warrant a really lengthy look. And like you said, don't want to rush it just
yeah.
to squeeze it into this session. But this committee that's studying this now, they're not going to make any kind of recommendation necessarily, are they? I know they want the Mississippi Economic Council maybe to take a stance on this, but not this committee per se.
Well, that's a good question, and they kind of, at least Huddleston and Bain said that they're going to just present a fact-based report. But it would not surprise me if there's some effort by some members of the committee. Richard Bennett, the Gaming Commission member, a chairman from House Gaming Commission chairman from down the coast. It wouldn't surprise me if he said, let's go ahead and make a recommendation. So we just have to see how that works out. But it's the governor who wants the MEC to take a stance, and
Right.
MEC to take a stance on is supporting the lottery in the special session with the revenue going to transportation needs, which MEC says is that more money is needed for transportation. And the governor's saying, here's the money you need right here at the lottery. So we just have to see. MEC said they're studying that issue, that the governor proposal. So we'll see if they if they take a stance before June 5th.
And one interesting dynamic of this is that the casino industry has been now big for years here in Mississippi, and in the past has opposed enacting a lottery. But George Flaggs, he's on the committee. He's the mayor of Vicksburg, and he's in an interesting position, being the mayor of a town where there are casinos, and also a town where people drive through or leave to go into Louisiana to get lottery tickets. I mean, he's got a unique perspective on things, and apparently, he says he has not heard any opposition voiced by the casino industry, has he?
Yeah, and that's interesting, Brad, because at one point in time, the Gulf Coast legislators, where there's casinos, and the Mississippi River legislators, where there's also casinos, were some of the most vocal opponents of the lottery back up several years ago. But you're not seeing that now. Richard Bennett has indicated he's for the lottery. As I said, he's a gaming commission, House Gaming Commission chair, and he's from the Gulf Coast. Other Gulf Coast legislators also come out in front for the lottery. So you're just not hearing. I mean, I don't know if the casinos are just not as concerned about the lottery as they were 10 years ago, or they're just kind of laying in the weeds, waiting for the right moments to kill it. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But
go ahead.
There's only 6 states don't have a lottery, and I think it's interesting. One of those states don't have a lottery is I believe is Nevada. So and that's the king of the casino state. So that's always, and we know the folks in Nevada don't have a issue with gaming, and so as far as the games of chance. So the reason they do not have a lottery has to be something other than their opposition to gambling. So that's indication in some states the casinos do have a way in stopping the lottery.
Certainly. Good stuff as always, Bobby. Y'all can find Bobby's work, of course, every day in the Daily Journal and at djournal.com. Follow him on Twitter at BobbyHarrison9. And that'll do it for us for this episode of Capitol View. Again, coming to you every Monday around 2 p.m. If you can't watch it live, just catch the replay later in the day. Bobby, thank you as always, sir. Good stuff.
Brad, I enjoyed it. We'll do it again.
We will do it again. We'll do it next Monday, and we'll see y'all then.
All right. Take